Welcome to Alumni Live, the podcast. These are conversations with Grand Valley State University film and video graduates about the industry, the film video major, and alumni profiles. Thanks for hanging out, Kirie.
Hi, hello, Randy.
Hey, so Kirie Quackenbush, you graduated just in 2019, pretty recently. You studied film and video at Grand Valley, as we're here with the film and video alumni chapter of the Grand Valley Alumni Association. And you are doing some crazy cool stuff right now in the video games industry.
Yeah, it's really cool. I currently work as a cinematic artist on the Sims team with EA, working on trailers and videos, all using the Sims to produce things for social media and across content for EA marketing initiatives and other things that are way beyond just marketing, but also just for entertainment purposes. It's been a wild ride. Like you said, I graduated last year, 2019. Literally a day after I graduated, I moved out to the East Coast. I was living in an Airbnb looking for a job. I ended up working at Adobe as their motion graphics outreach associate for a while. Somebody there towards the end of the year for my contract position at Adobe recommended me for a project with Condé Nast. And they just so happened to be looking for someone who did Sims videos and Sims projects, which was crazy because I've been loving The Sims and playing it my whole life. I used to get grounded for making Sims videos way past my bedtime when I was a kid. And at this point, Condé Nast was looking for someone like me. I ended up doing the project. The EA representative on the team referred me to the internal team, and they were like, hey, we need a cinematic artist on the Sims team. Would you like to join us? And long story short, that's my story. That's how I am where I am. And yeah, very excited.
Man, we are going to roll some tape in a second, but just before we jump into that, what was that call like? Like when they asked you to come in and make some cinematics in The Sims, what did that feel like?
Oh my gosh. I'm like shaking thinking about it right now because it felt so surreal and it still feels really surreal. It's a total honor for me right now to be a part of the team. It felt like someone just reached out and said, hey, your childhood dream can be your career. Would you like to do it now? So I was like, of course, I'll do anything. Sure, I'd love to. It really feels like a dream come true. It's crazy and it's hard, but it's very fulfilling. And I love it.
That sounds like it was just a magic time in your life. Hey, let's take a look at some of the type of work you do, not necessarily one that you made, as your stuff will be coming out shortly. But let's take a look at that.
Yeah, cool.
Strangerville. This happy desert community is a great place to bring your family. Absolutely nothing bad happens here.
Hurry there. They're lying to you. Something bad is happening here, and it's only getting worse. People are acting. Oh, it's super weird. Purple glowing pot plant things are sprouting up all around town. Suspicious fans and federal agents have invaded the streets. Something's up, and we're gonna prove it. Choose the new aspiration Strangerville mystery.
That looks like it's so much fun to make.
Yeah, I really love that trailer. I chose that one to show for a couple of reasons. One, Strangerville is my favorite game pack for the Civ 4. I was impacted so much by that pack that honestly, I really want to go ahead and just really dive into it as a fan. But on another note, that gameplay trailer is something that's very similar to something that I'm working on with my team right now. And I can't say anything about it, but I'm very excited about the next pack that's going to come out and what we're working on. And that's the very similar kind of style to what we're working on. Our team works on several different types of trailers. So that one's a gameplay trailer. You saw how it showed all the details of how the game works and like what you click and what you go through in the game pack. And we also do more like reveal cinematic style trailers, which don't have any voiceover usually, and really just, just give an overlay or a scene to paint a picture of what the game is like. And right now we're working on all of the above. And yeah, I really love that as an example. I love the back and forth of how it gets all spooky. And then it's also very happy and light. And that really is what the game is like when you experience it. And that's why it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, so to kind of like pull back into your process a little bit. So, you're making these cinematics, you're talking about what the core of the game is, what the player is going to experience. How do you convey that? So video games are like a interactive medium. How do you convey that in something that's a little less interactive, like film and video?
Yeah. So I think that that's the big question, right? Especially as someone who's in a typical film and video career in college, you don't really think about how can I apply these skills to a video game, right? But I think especially now, more and more today, games are really becoming a very cinematic entertainment experience. And being able to take that knowledge of film and video and apply it to an interactive context is something that really brings that to life in an entertainment way for our viewers and for fans alike. So, really just honing in using things like the 180-degree rule, the rule of thirds, and applying that to a capture context within the game makes it feel just like a movie.
Great. And it looks like we have Karl in. Karl is a professor at University of Wisconsin in
Stout.
Stout. Wisconsin Stout. I can. Yes. And we got your audio in.
Wonderful. I apologize for the technical issues. I got forced into a reboot, so I'm so glad to make it in on my phone.
Happy to have you. Anything could happen in alumni life.
Right.
So, Karl, we were just talking about Kirie's just a year out from college, getting into the business. You're working with a lot of students yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about your place in the industry?
Sure, yeah. I can kind of give you a little background. My tour into the games world was a little circuitous route. I went through a decade of working in the industry in the legal field. So it wasn't straight into the games. It was working on doing accident reconstructions and animating plane crashes and such. And I started getting into teaching and I started doing more game jams. I can show you a couple examples of that as well. But that was really my lead into the games world. And I really enjoyed the community. I really enjoyed being able to produce something in a very quick turnaround. And so now I'm teaching artists and sometimes programmers how to make games.
Yeah, and that quick turnaround is definitely something that we're going to talk about later throughout the industry. But you're talking about a game jam. So why don't you tell us what a game jam is? And we'll take a look at some of the footage from that right after.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I've done about 4 or 5 different game jams. And essentially, what happens is that you get a bunch of people together with different skills. There are people who are, skilled in art and animation or narrative or programming and development. And some people who may have a full time career in doing web programming or front end development. And it's just kind of time to play. And you have a set time limit. It could be 24 or 48 hours. And I created a couple games with a group of very talented people. One of them was called Joe versus Volcano, which I was pleased to put together, doing an isometric game where you jump to the music. This next one you're looking at now, we took the idea of Overcooked, which is a popular video game, and CRISPR technology, and we kind of merged those together. And we made this game in about 20 hours or so. And Scott Lemke was my amazing programmer who he and I put together this game that we actually played on the physical Nintendo Entertainment System. So using the modifier, the challenger of trying to keep it simple, he had purchased a device that allowed you to put in a little micro SD card, and we got to play it on the original NES. The animation in the beginning showed a little double helix, and that's something I created in Maya and put it into Sprite, and then he put it into the code. I might be the first time that it would ever went from a Maya to NES workflow.
Wow. That is a little bit 2 decades working together, huh?
I know, right? And so when you have that limited time to make a game, you really are encouraged to figure out what's possible. And it might not be complete, it might not be perfection, but you have that opportunity just to try something new or learn something that's not in your immediate skill set.
Sure. And with video games, I'm sure everything is new all the time. You're constantly reinventing code and what you're creating and gameplay and stuff. Kirie, Karl mentioned he's working a lot in Maya and certainly through other emulators and coding things. What programs are you using to make your cinematics?
Yeah, well, definitely across the different people that we work with to create everything for our Sims videos, Maya's definitely one of them. Every now and then, you'll need a custom animation for the video, or otherwise just going into the game and using the animations that are already there. We have our own software that we use to build things up. And besides Maya, there's so many just technical things. There's a lot of Python and a lot of C# that runs things. And all this different code that I don't even understand to an extent that really like makes the game powerful. But we really use a mix between different softwares like Maya as well as coding programs and game software just to blend it all into one to create an end product.
Wow. Yeah. Looks like we have a question from YouTube. Michelle is asking, looks like a question for Karl. Is it CRISPR technology like for gene editing?
That's the one. That's the very one. Yes. In the game that you saw, you were taking these little strands of DNA and you could either separate or combine or flip and then try to match the sequence, which then once it's complete, you could have it go up the conveyor belt. And yeah, it was two very separate ideas and mashing them together.
Man, so not just video editing, but gene editing. It's like a whole different skill than we learned at Grand Valley. We have a question from Suzanne Zach. Suzanne asks, what advice do you have for students who want to enter the field? This is a great question for both of you.
I can go first. Definitely, definitely, definitely. Really focus on what you are doing in school. It really makes a difference when you're out looking for jobs and you're looking for connections to refer you to those jobs. It makes a difference as to what you've been doing. Your grades are great. They matter. They're important. You should always make sure that you're doing your best in school, but really also pay attention to your extracurriculars, what you're doing outside of those classes, what you're learning from those classes that you can apply to early work. Definitely internships are super important. Even studying abroad, just getting a bigger perspective on the world so that you can apply it to your art is really important. Doing everything that you can related to your chosen field is really important before you go out into the world.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like you also had played a lot of games as you were saying earlier. So just being in the medium that that
Yeah.
doing a lot of The Sims. Karl, what do you tell your students and the people that you work with?
Oh, Kirie nailed it. I think being able to be aware of what you're doing is very important, but also having a breadth of skills. Taking that class and like right now I'm learning about Python. It's something I never would have thought I'd be doing, but being able to automate those processes for game design has been really important. The things I tell my students right now is that my first job, my first demo reel that I created included nothing from my actual schoolwork. It was all extracurricular things that I wanted to create, items that I wanted to show. Hold up on this video really quick. I'm going to talk about that in a second, Randy. That's for my students' work right now. But the things that I showed in my demo reel for animation specifically included things like I want to learn how to composite. And at the time, the Star Wars Episode 1 came out, so we were playing behind the Calder Residence Center with broomstick handles and learning how to composite lightsabers and things. Things like that show a little bit more effort goes into my thought process and doing what I want to do as opposed to just the canned schoolwork.
Yeah, I've also learned I don't make video games myself. I'm a documentary filmmaker, but I've learned that, those skills of curiosity and learning how to learn, I think is something that we all found very valuable across these different parts of the industry and in different entertainments. It's all difficult in the industry, of course. I would like to hear a little bit about when people get into the industry, what is it like? What does the work-life balance look like?
Yeah, I can say from my experience so far, again, that it's hard, but if you put in the commitment and you're really dedicated to what you do, it's very fulfilling. The game industry isn't like a lot of industries, right? Um, the people in the game industry end up working on weekends because people play games on weekends, right? Games are something that people are always playing all the time. And especially as our technology increases and we move forwards towards the future, more and more people are playing video games, especially as we're stuck inside during COVID-19. Everybody's playing games. So it's very, very busy. The hours are long, depending on when you need the product to be out. Sometimes you'll be working a 3 hour day and then playing games the rest of the day, or sometimes you'll be working a 10 hour day. It really depends on what the project is and what the demand is at that time. And it really requires a lot of focusing on yourself, knowing your limits, and really working with your team to make sure that everything's under control and you have a balance so that you don't get burnt out.
Yeah, and I'd imagine even in that, short year that you've been there, there may have been some burnout. It looks like we've got a question here. So we'll come back to that idea of burnout in a second. Kirie, I know you studied in Japan. Does Japanese animation style have influence on your work? Did you study abroad? Is that what that's about?
Yeah, I did. I studied abroad in 2017. I lived in Japan for 4 months. And it was a life-changing experience. I mean, I had loved Japan before that, but now I always want to go back. I always want to be there now. I would say it definitely has a big impact on what I do. I really love the drama and the sadness that a lot of Japanese entertainment can portray. And I also love the really happy and crazy and silly moments. I have some work examples that I could throw in or share after the stream, otherwise, of some things that I've made on my own that are also Sims related that got me into this position that I can share. But yeah, I would say it's made a big impact on what I've been doing at this point.
Yeah. Karl, has travel affected you at all as you're out there in Wisconsin?
I'm in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and I
Minnesota.
travel over across the border. So I'm anxiously looking forward to this next semester of teaching and trying to accommodate all the social distancing and things. I wish I would have had a international study. I didn't have that in my mindset as an opportunity or a possibility when I was going to school, but that and maybe an auto repair class as well. That's the things that I didn't think I'd be needing at the time, but now it'd be really, really good to have that worldview and learn more
Sure.
about cultures and diversity.
Yeah, I would say it sounded like that question from the Facebook page was also getting to your influences. So maybe where do you pull influences from in your work as an artist?
Where I pull influences from, a lot of the times it's very sporadic, it's very impromptu. One of my favorite pieces didn't take me very long to create, but it was something that I called up the neighborhood kid and I said, "Hey, let's go out and let's shoot some video. Pretend you're being chased by a giant boulder down that hill." And he says, "Okay." And he acted running down the hill. And so I put in this giant snowball, this big boulder, kind of like your Indiana Jones and things like that. I really enjoy those moments where you can just check out for a little bit and jump into a piece, whether that be with film or with pixel art, or sometimes I even go out and mow patterns in my lawn.
Yeah, see it from the sky, huh? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to add to that in working on the Sims team now. A lot of what I put into the shots that I do for our trailers really is affected by what I see in cinema. I can think always, I recall Better Call Saul. I really love the cinematography in that show and the lighting, and I love the dramatic angles. And I really like to pull that kind of stuff into my shots as much as I can while staying on brand, of course, because Sims is silly and not always too dramatic. But I really love all of the colors and, oh my gosh, a lot that I learned from my film classes about color theory and just teal and orange. All of that really has applied to what I've been working on now.
Wow. So you might say that you have a style. Like if we looked at your cinematics, we might see a lot of that teal, a lot of that blue, a little bit of violet.
A lot of really colorful things, usually in the trailers that we have coming up. I would say probably a lot of the ones that have a lot of zoom on them, but are still cropped back to a medium shot, but you see a lot of depth of field and zoom. That'll often probably be one of my shots because my choice for close ups and medium shots is always to give it kind of a more dramatic feel instead of just a clean cut feel. So.
Yeah. I remember when I noticed that a lot of my work had a similar look to it, maybe call it a style. I remember that felt like I was an artist. Like when I noticed that all my shots have kind of a similar feel.
Yeah.
I think that's a rite of passage in a little bit of way. Yeah. So talking about the industry again, we were kind of touching on burnout a little bit. Karl, is that something that you see, a lot of long to-do lists and people at the edge of their abilities?
I can share with you that I've experienced burnout. When I was working in animation for legal, there was oftentimes deadlines that would come in, often changes in direction. Working for a smaller firm where there isn't a chance to really hand off work or share the workload, you are the responsibility. I know that friends who have gone into freelance or contract work might also, or start their own business, even feel that pressure. So being able to manage a lot of different changing needs and requirements, and also keep up with technical requirements and changing in software because it constantly changes. There's new tools all the time. I think that when I talk to my students about going into industry, there's a couple different approaches. One of them could be to specialize in one area and get really good at that. And chances are you might have to move out of the Midwest to go to one of the coasts if you want to work as, let's say, a flame or a nuke artist. or maybe you want to be more of a generalist. And that, I think, gets you to apply to more positions, perhaps working in architecture or graphic design or web. So yeah, I've definitely felt the pressure and felt the needs of the clients when trying to meet those demands. And burnout is definitely a thing. Trying to set your boundaries and be able to know what is acceptable for your personal workload for the week or the month.
Yeah. Kirie, do you have anything to add, or how has that changed during COVID maybe?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Especially during COVID. If you know me, I am always a yes person when it comes to things I'm very excited about. And as I've said, I'm very excited about Sims. So combining my interests with my work makes me always want to do the very best and the very most that I can. And those long hours, it's so easy for them to slip by sometimes when you're really like focusing on getting the shot right. And I definitely agree. It's really easy to get burnt out, even in a positive way. Even though I'm super excited and spending a lot of time on what I love, I still find myself getting really tired or fatigued at the end of the day. And that's kind of a red flag. I need to step back, I need to relax, and I need to prioritize my day so that I get things done in a reasonable amount of time and not spend too much time or an overly amount of time working on things when I don't have to.
Sure. Yeah. Being able to realize that is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
I've noticed. We're taking a short break to tell you about the Dirk Koning Memorial Film and Video Scholarship. Here's Gretchen Vintage remembering Dirk Koning.
The Koenig Scholarship enables students to get that kind of an education, to be a good filmmaker, to be able to express their voice, and to continue Dirk's dream.
For more information and to donate to the scholarship, visit the link in the description. Now back to the show. I understand we have a question from a viewer. Maxwell Neely says, do you need to know programming to do sound design for video games, or can you use Pro Tools and things that we've learned as film and video majors? Karl, you want to tackle that?
I'd love to, yeah. With one of the classes I teach is the senior capstone class. I'll show you some examples of that later. But in that, we partner up with a school in Boston, and they have a minor or a degree in game sound. For that, they do have very, very good program in composing music, sound effects, and things. They do have skills in implementing this into Unity with C sharp. So I think that it would benefit you to learn how to do that with a little bit of programming and knowing some of the skills. There are programs that have that bridge or that pipeline between creating the music and then implementing it in the engines. I think it's very important to look into those and know what those are capable of.
It's a great answer. Thank you very much. Another question from a viewer, and that viewer is Michelle Terpstra. She says, I have friends who work in the video game industry. Years ago, they said that it's mainly young white men. Have you noticed the industry diversifying more with women and people of color? What is this culture like?
Yeah, I can totally touch on that. I would say that, especially with how the media and society has been now and really pushing for this kind of change in a big media light with the advancements of a lot of movements, with everything that happened with George Floyd, a lot of this is getting a lot of recognition, and big brands are stepping up and really trying to make an impact on how this affects their viewers. And I would say that within the game industry, at least on a larger scale, in a company like EA, there's been huge strides made to really make an effort to diversify and make things more inclusive. Because it's true, it has been a white, cis male dominated industry. And as someone who is a double minority in this case, a person of color and a woman, it's very strange to kind of step into a world where, I mean, it's been on Zoom now during COVID, right? But during like big company meetings, seeing that everyone on the screen is white. Like, how do I fit into this and how do I make an impact? But companies are really trying to raise voices like mine and give me a position like I have on the cinematic team so that I can put in my opinion and really show my art as a person of color. And I think that big companies are taking steps to diversify and go in that direction, but it's really just the beginning. I think that there's so much more that we can do and so many more events, including LGBTQIA, lots of things that can be done. But I think within the company themselves, that's how you get games that represent our people. So, for example, Apex Legends, I think, does a really great job at diversifying the cast and really showing inclusivity. And I think more games should take approaches like that, where like their cast and their characters are very diverse. And I think that people are speaking about this now. I think that it's making a big difference in how companies are responding. So I think we're going in that direction, but slowly but surely.
Probably a long ways to go, but in the right direction.
Yeah.
I understand too that a lot of the engines and tools that people use, you can download for free. So there is maybe for the young people watching, the access is available, right? You can start making your own games today, right?
Yeah.
Karl, do you have any recommendations on just getting started?
Yeah, I just wanted to quick add on to Kirie's observations. And one observation I've seen is with teaching students in the art program for game design, it is in many of my classes almost 50-50, which is a huge improvement. And it's exciting to see that happen. It's not quite caught up with the programming side yet, but it's slowly growing. And I think that adding more diversity and more viewpoints really helps to make a better product and has more potential for reaching other audiences. There's so many new things that, man, I keep going back when I was in school, back in 2001, if you wanted to learn a program or talk about Maya, you had to call somebody up and say, "Hey, I heard that you're a studio that might have this. Could I come lean over your shoulder or ask you a question just to learn more?" And now you've got Blender, which is open source, is free to students to download. You've got programs like Audacity for editing audio. You've got Godot, which is a smaller but growing game engine as well. So Unity, Unreal, Godot, there's other ones as well. Game Maker. There's so many more opportunities available to you now than there was, 10, 20 years ago. It makes it so much easier to participate in a game jam and just do your own thing and make and create and share.
Karl, we have some of your students' work. Would you want to take a look at some of that and tell us what we're seeing?
Yeah, I want to show you a little bit about what the students that I'm teaching right now are creating. So if you could roll that second clip, one of the classes I teach is pixel and vector art. And so we start out by having the students make some pixel arts and talk about tile sets and animations and things. One of the projects I did a couple years ago was this remake of Zelda, the original NES game, and that was a blast. And so working with constraints was the main focus of that. Another one was some isometric art and learning how to work within those parameters. We did a project that was a side scroller to talk about how to implement basics code of having your characters jump or walk or idle. And the students who never experienced code before were a little bit challenged, but I was really pleased with the outcome.
Oh, these are beautiful. These are
It's so
really
different. There's so much variety in there. And one of the projects we did that was a lot of fun is I gave students each, if you can show that last one too, if it comes up, the students were given different tiles. I had a little bit of work up to build a map of the UW-Stout campus and adjoining areas. And each student was assigned a building on campus, a building off campus, and then I think a piece of the water as well, because there's a lake nearby. And it turned out beautifully. But one of the main takeaways of that is working within a team, because game design is a multidisciplinary career. You can't really do all of it on your own. There's so many disciplines involved, and being able to share art assets, share and learn about music, programming and interactivity. It's just, I felt that was a really successful project.
Kirie, what can you tell us about the teams that you work in?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm within a team, within a team, within a team, within a team. There's a lot of different people that work on a game. I would have to reach my arm like Mr. Fantastic all the way around the world twice to reach the person who comes up with the idea for the next game. A lot of people work together. There's so many moving parts to deliver a game, which is why it's such hard work, which is why there's so many hours put into it, because it's really hard, especially to present what people are expecting now. Like nobody wants bad graphics anymore. Now they've seen good ones. Unless you're making another Deadly Premonition, no one wants bad graphics. So people really have to work to do all the animations, to do all the textures, to make sure that it works coding wise. There's a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different brains that work together to deliver an end product.
Right. And especially with the videos that you're making too, you're telling a story and you're showing an experience. So how does communication work? Was there somebody with a vision, or how does that video come together?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I really love how it works, actually. It's a very, very similar to how a small scale film production would work. We have our producer who hears from studio, like, this is what we're looking for. The producer gives a pitch to basically our director, who's my boss, our manager. And she's like, okay, I see your vision. She makes a shot list for us. And then we go at it and we create the product that everyone's envisioning and we bring it all together into one. We all review it, we make changes, and then eventually the trailer's out.
Man, it must feel so good when you see that out there and the news is talking about it because you're at Electronic Arts. And
Yeah.
do you feel that pressure like when you're making on, those huge properties like The Sims?
Oh my gosh, I think so. I think so, especially because I feel slightly more biased towards what we're working on because I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great," because I've always loved Sims, but I know that fans are looking at our work and using that to determine if they want the game or not, right? And it's The Sims, which is probably one of, if not only the biggest, like, life simulation platform there is. And so they're looking at the work that I worked on and they're like, "Hey, I want this game or I don't want this game," across the entire world. And that's pretty crazy to think about.
Sure, yeah. Carl, when people play games, right? We're talking about, games that people want to play. What is that magic piece? What are all the things that make a video game its own art form and really fun for people to pick up?
Oh my gosh.
What do you look for in a game is maybe a more simple way to ask that.
That's a huge question. I think it depends. Oh man. What makes a good game? Wow, I think it depends on the mood that I'm in when I choose a game. If I have some opportunity to sit down and play a game and invest into exploring. I have 2 kids at home, so if I have maybe 20 seconds alone, I can pop open an idle, game and play a little bit of that. There's so many ways to approach what makes a good game. I think that people often look to the graphics first and then making sure it doesn't break. There are a lot of independent games that are beautiful ideas that might have functionality issues. So it's you kinda have to have, all of it in one. I don't know.
Yeah. I'd imagine being fun is probably a pretty big part of that.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Looks like we got a question from Mallory Patterson who says, "My daughter thinks you're so incredibly cool. She said to say hi." I'll say that's for both of our guests here.
Thanks, hi.
Oh, another question from Suzanne Zach. If someone graduates and wants to work in the industry, what are some of the first steps they could take?
Mm.
Sell your soul. No, just kidding.
Beautiful.
Definitely, at least from recent approach from my end, reach out to your connections. You better have been making connections in college because that's your first step. Most of the time, it's really about who you know, in addition to your work ethic and what you're applying for. But having like idols and people to look up to, even just for advice, is so helpful. Those informational interviews that Suzanne's always telling you to do, they're important. Really reach out to people, ask them what it's like to work in their career, really figure out what you're doing in that moment. Don't think too much about like where you want to end up. Like maybe in school you were super focused on being a cinematographer for Pixar or a director for Lucasfilm, but don't focus so much on the end goal. Focus on what you're going to do to take care of yourself now that you will enjoy that can eventually bring you up to that level. And I think that if you start there and you leverage your connections and just keep living and making more connections wisely, you will get to where you want to be.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Being able to leverage your connections and meet people to know what they're doing, and that's gonna broaden your horizons as well. I never knew that legal animation was a thing until I applied for the job, you know? My senior year of school at, Grand Valley, I think my friend Angie and I went out to the Ottawa Film Festival. We drove all the way out to Ottawa, Canada to see that, to see independent, short films there. I went to SIGGRAPH and volunteered to learn more about computer graphics in the industry out there. First, I went to New Orleans and then LA. It was just getting your name out there and learning about what's possible. Because as a student, I mean, just it's challenging. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's a very popular field. It's very challenging to get in and to maintain it. So being realistic that you have to have the skills to continue in this field.
Oh, that is very helpful information. I know that working through the Alumni Association, one thing that a lot of students ask for in an event we host is all about making demo reels. And so, Kirie, especially like you're making these teaser videos, which are kind of demo reels to some extent. What advice do you have for making demo reels to young filmmakers or young video game makers?
Yeah, definitely. Everything that you're working on is important. Even that little tiny project that you have that's before your final, you don't really care about it. You're in a bad group with people you don't like. Work your hardest on every single assignment that you get because everything that you make, you can put in your portfolio. And even if you don't really like what you're working on at the time, over time, you can see growth through your portfolio. And that's also something that people really like to see like, wow, you've been working at your craft for so long and you're doing really well with this now. I love to see your variety and your breadth of experience. Yeah, exactly like Beverly said. Your portfolio is super important if you're going into any kind of artistic field in game design. I mean, that's what they're going to look at. For me, in my position, they looked at like my YouTube channel, which is filled with Sims content and videos that I've made. And if I didn't have that, they wouldn't have any evidence that I can do what I do now. So really just like work on your craft and publish it, share it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sharing it is huge. There are some things that I posted up on my website or on Twitter or something that it was just a doodle. It was something that, I wanted to try a new tool or process. And you never know who's going to latch onto that and say, yeah, that's really cool. I like that thing you did. And, it might just be something that's a study that I, was tentative to even show it, to even share that. So do share your stuff and build up your portfolio and build up your work.
Yeah, that makes me think actually. I personally had always felt kind of weird about my Sims work. I really loved showing it to my family because they thought it was really cool and they respected the art. But through high school, sometimes people wouldn't take it seriously or they'd laugh at it. So I kept it quiet for a while going into college. I just keep making things myself and sharing them on my YouTube channel, but I didn't share it publicly with anyone who really knew me as me. And I think it's really important to know, regardless of what people say, if you really like what you're working on, then you should be proud of it and you should share it because there's always going to be some niche audience who thinks the same way as you. And just like Karl was saying, like you never know who's going to see that and notice it and really want you to do that thing for them. I didn't expect Condé Nast to want someone who made Sims videos ever in my life. So really keep working on what you love because it matters. It does.
That was beautiful. On that topic of showing stuff we're working on, Karl, we have a trailer for a game that you are making.
Let me just do a quick intro to this. I've got
Yeah.
more video to share, and it's a selection of two of the senior capstone games. What it is a combination of students who are both in the computer science game design program and the BFA art game design program. And what we do is we put the students together, we mix them up into teams, and they have a whole year a whole academic year to create a 3D video game. And for their senior capstone, I wanted to share two games. One's called Whisper and one is called Umbrella Mondays. The two classes, and there's many other games that have been produced over the years that are beautiful. But I wanted to show these two games as an example of what some of our students are doing and what undergraduates in game design programs can create. So two very different feels of games. One of them, Umbrella Mondays, was more somber, more working with puzzles and taking these little creatures and throwing them in the fire, and they turn into fire sprites. And another one, Whisper, where you're playing as the wind, and you're using that mechanic to navigate around the island and to help these little shelfster creatures to solve their little daily troubles and strifes.
This look like they'd be really cool to play, and not just play,
Well,
but
they're
experience
online,
things
so
like-
feel free to download them.
Oh, well, go check it out then for sure.
Whisper has come significantly farther than the trailer I showed. It's got much more detail and
Yeah, and the games have progressed so far. Like just looking at those, those are 3D made by students. Karl, you've been around the industry for a little while. What can you tell us about the perspective on technology advancing and game experiences advancing, and what have we seen in the history of games?
oh my gosh. So back in my day, the analogy people had often made was, oh, it's 3D modeling is like sculpting with clay. And it wasn't. It was pushing polygons and it was math. It was very detailed. Now we have ZBrush and Mudbox, and you can actually sculpt. And I think that gives students opportunity to, sculpt and to make these high definition models. It also creates a problem for trying to display those on systems that can't really afford to display all the polygons or render them out. So there's still that underlying need to understand the technology and the limitations of what's possible.
which is advancing all the time. So I think we'll wrap up today talking about what are we seeing for the future? Like what advances do you think is coming without maybe getting into specifics of what you're working on, Kirie? What are you excited for in this next generation of games that are coming out and what do you see?
Oh man, I really love that games and game companies are taking more of a focus on personalizing their content to the player. Like really trying to make the player feel like the game is theirs and they have their own unique experience. I think that's so cool. That's all I want in a game is just a game that feels like it's made for me. I'm waiting for the real life Ready Player One to come out. That would be super cool. I know that we have the capability if we spent years doing it, maybe to get something similar at least. And I would love to see something like that. That's what I'm hoping for.
Karl, what do you see coming for the future? Hopes and dreams?
Hopes and dreams. Well, I think having played the tilt brush in VR and being able to actually draw and create in a 3D space, that was pretty captivating. I don't know that VR is quite there yet for mass audiences, but it's got the potential, I think, of really giving you a sense of being in a unique space, especially for training applications. I think that we're going to continue to see more and more details. I think we're going to get bigger and better and faster. So we'll see. I think that things like Steam, we're able to filter through and find games that really fit your needs or fit your desires is going to be growing. I really hope that indie games as well continue to grow and developing new ideas and things that are new ways of challenging our minds.
I think that's a perfect way to bring back what we were talking about in the beginning of this, where it's just you're constantly relearning things, and that curiosity really drives the creation that people in the video games and in the film and video industry. That's why we're in it. Just keep making new cool stuff.
I
Right.
think all of us are makers at heart.
Yeah.
It's all out there, accessible, and it sounds like you gave people some great tips on how to get out there and create with you. So thank you so much for joining us on Alumni Live. You're making the Grand Valley alumni look really good out there. So thanks to both of you.
Thank you. Thanks, Grand Valley. Thanks to everyone watching.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Alumni Live, the podcast. Subscribe to our podcast to hear more from alumni from across the industry. Check out Alumni Live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more conversations and networking. Let us know what topics you want to hear our alumni talk about. The Grand Valley State University Film and Video Alumni Network is here for you, and we're glad you're here. Thank you for listening.